It's the Jim Fannin Show. We've come to take your mind.
Am I still on? Go! Marty from up north is a Twitter star. He's an Albertan and a patriot Canadian. He's with me for about an hour. Buckle up and welcome aboard. The open still gets me fired up, even without the radio show. Before we go, he does need an introduction, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. But before we do, before we go on camera, this is a little intro, and he may or may not be prepared for me to play this off his YouTube channel, but...
All right, honey, let's do...
This is what Marty looked like before he went on a Twitter hiatus for a week or so. And I'm guessing,
doing this for a good cause.
I hope that's your wife. You're a father to 4 grown adults, he says. It's a little loud in the background. And then when Marty came back from his little Twitter holiday, his face was bald. And you know, I'm not a big beard guy. I like to be clean shaven, but I get it. It's popular these days. So he comes back. Your wife, is this your wife here? She's adorable, and she doesn't know how to operate one of those things. Marty, thank you for your time, brother. You can unmute your mic there and tell us what was this all about?
Me with that thing when she shaved my face. Believe it or not, that's a dog trimmer. That's not even a human trimmer. That's a dog trimmer, and it was dull. It wasn't cutting. It was ripping. You know. And for the viewers, yeah, I'm an Albertan, and specifically, I'm an oil patch guy. So I had an entire career in the Alberta oil patch, and in the north, in the field, like not a city guy. I'm a guy who lived in small towns, and then where the action was in the oil patch. I was on site on drilling rigs, gas plants, facilities my whole life. And there's a rule in the oil patch: you have to be clean shaven, because the gas that we produce is toxic, or some of it. So you have to be able to throw on a mask. So we're always clean shaven. And so I spent about 25 years in the field, and finally I got transferred to Calgary, where I sort of currently live now. Got transferred to head office near the end of my career, which was about 7-8 years ago. And it's traditional. It's kind of one of those things when a guy from the field, kind of like a soldier who stops being a soldier, you grow your beard because you're tired of shaving every day. Well, I'd been in the field, shave every day. So once you get to head office, you let your beard grow. And one thing led to another. I had that darn beard for about a decade. And so when it came off a month and a half ago, it was a big deal for me. A big, like, to the point where kids, my own kids, didn't recognize me coming down the stair, or, I mean, they don't live at home. And I think in the video, there's 1 or 2 kids with me, but I have 2 kids who don't live at home. They didn't recognize me. I went to a little party a little while ago, and somebody was staring right at me. And finally, they dawned on them that they were looking at Marty. So, and then for I don't know if you played the whole video, but I wasn't going to waste a beard. I shaved it and, raised a few bucks, raised $1,100. And, I was wondering, who do I give the money to? and I didn't want to give it to humans. And screw humans. I mean, fucking humans can take care of themselves. And here in Canada right now, things are shitty. We've had a liberal government for 8 years, and yeah, humans are struggling. But somebody let me know that dogs and pets are struggling. And nearby to where I live, there's a dog shelter, a humane society they call it. And I heard through that from people that people are returning their dogs. Like, people are so hurting. Inflation is so high that they can't feed their dogs and their cats, and the shelter was overwhelmed. And I thought, you know what? Fuck humans. I'm not going to take care of humans. I'm going to do something for the cats and the dogs. So I donated all the money I raised from shaving my beard to the Humane Society. So it was a good day, good thing.
I was going to ask you, because you said darn in the beginning, I was going to ask you, are you a guy that keeps control of dirty words coming out of your mouth? But then you dropped an F-bomb, so I get that you're not too concerned about that.
I'm not concerned about it. If you're concerned about it, well, here's another bit about Marty. I mean, they used to call me the chameleon. They'd say you clean up well, like this, right? Because I'd be a dirty oil field guy. I'd be a guy in the oil patch, like sitting on the back of a pickup truck, taking a break from drilling or something, and sitting on the back of the pickup truck with dirty hands, dirty fingernails, smoking a cigarette, swearing with the guys. And then when I'd come to Calgary for meetings with my bosses, they'd see me, clean shaven, hands clean, wearing a suit and talking. I mean, I can drop the F-bombs, but I can also go in
the
board meeting kind of thing and be presentable, I guess. Yeah.
What was your position on the rigs? What'd you do?
Oh, I did everything. Like,
You're one of them.
I'm an engineer.
You're one of those guys
ahead.
on the deck that we see those manly videos of slinging chains and wrenches and jumping around and almost killing themselves. And so
that would have been 30 years ago, like 30. Yeah, like that's when you're 18 years old.
Did anyone ever come to the platform and say, "This is your DEI inspection. Where's all the women and minorities"?
No. Didn't do that.
That never happened.
Yeah. Near the end of my field days, they started down that bullshit path, and some of the head offices would send people to the field, and we'd have to take an afternoon off and go do a DEI training, and we'd have some of those ladies in tears because they'd be trying to push their bullshit on us, and they'd be looking around saying there's not a lot of diversity here. It's like, lady, you're in northern Alberta, like look around you. I mean, yeah, not a lot of Filipinos. Actually, let's not go there.
Pure blood.
Yeah, no. So I did all the roles. Climbed the corporate ladder, and those kinds of roles on the rigs. Those are the roles that you don't want to do for very long because those are the really dangerous, dirty jobs. I went to school and I got my engineering degree, which makes you kind of a manager in the oil patch, and then as an engineer, I spent 10, 15 years building stuff, designing stuff that got built, and then moved through the ranks and made it all the way to some very senior positions in the oil patch. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of, and your viewers have heard of, TransCanada Pipelines. I worked for TransCanada Pipelines as a director. And, you've probably even heard of the Keystone Pipeline. So I was the guy, I was in charge of the Keystone Pipeline. My team operated the Keystone Pipeline. So I've done some senior roles, which is why I was able to retire when I did. I'm 56. I haven't worked full time since I was 52.
Okay, I was going to ask you what your age is. You look good for your age. When you said you're retired already from the oil patch, then yeah, you went early then.
Yeah. Well, you start early, you go early. So I've been working since I was 16, 17 years old. And the oil patch is like, God, it's a great business. I mean, Canada should be booming because of the oil patch. And we have something that the whole planet wants. And we're shooting ourselves in the foot when it comes to resource development in this country. Yeah, and there's no reason for it.
I was in Calgary in 2006. And the place was bumping. It was a great place, you know what I mean? And it was my first experience with the weather systems there. But what a great piece of real estate you guys have got out there. I'm from Ontario. I don't get out of it much. Now I'm in the Dominican Republic. But I enjoyed my time in Calgary. And it was a shame to see, our dollar was more than the American dollar when the price of crude went up through the roof. And Canada was just milking it. You know, in my mind, the economy was steaming out there. And then you get all these, you know, I saw a stat the other day, maybe it was even on your page, about the percentage that we're paying for carbon tax compared to the rest of the world, and our, you know, our population and our contribution to CO2. I mean, I watched a special on this the other day. We've been duped by the CO2 gods, you know what I mean? Like our foliage, you know, and they saw this when they did the leaded gas in California too for the first time. The foliage just bumped huge when they stopped pumping lead into the air. It was stagnating the canopy, right? And as soon as they took the lead out of the air, it just exploded. And our canopy has exploded with the minor increase of CO2, and I don't know how that's contributed to global.
No. I mean, and you bring up a lot of great points. Like, you know, so I worked in the oil patch. So let me sort of give you a quick story, right? I mean, the reason Alberta has so much oil is because we're a place that had a nice warm climate. When I say warm, I mean, it was like 20 degrees warmer than it is now, you know, 400 million years ago. And there's big giant dinosaurs roaming the whole landscape, and the plants were humongous. I mean, you find fossilized evidence of plants here that are enormous because they benefited from the heat and the CO2 in the atmosphere, you know, hundreds of millions of years ago. If anybody is open-minded and wanted to really understand climate change, they'd come visit me. I've offered that many times. I'm like, come on a hike with me and I will take you through the Canadian Rockies and I will show you evidence of, you know, 100 million years of climate change all over the place.
What do you mean specifically? What are you showing people?
Well, like I'll give it like glaciers, you know. I mean, Alberta's landscape is formed. The dominant force that formed Alberta's landscape were glaciers. I mean, we had glaciers this whole part of the world at one point was covered by 2 kilometers of freaking glaciers. And then those glaciers moving and retreating formed the mountains, formed the rivers, formed all sorts of things. And so when you and the glaciers also, that ice age, creatures that live here had to adapt to that ice age and to that cold. And so consequently, now today in the modern era, you know, I live in a province that will go from minus 40 in the winter, minus 40 Celsius, to almost plus 40 in the summer. So there's like an 80-degree swing in temperatures throughout a year. And I ask people, like, what do you think is causing an 80-degree swing? Do you think it's because the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere is changing? No, the change in temperature, that 80-degree swing throughout a year, is because of getting a little bit closer and a little bit farther from the sun as we orbit. And that distance from December to July is like, you know, 40,000 kilometers. It's freaking nothing, but that 40,000 kilometers can do an 80-degree swing. And then people say, oh, carbon dioxide is going to do 1.5 degrees. It's like bullshit. And even if it did 1.5 degrees, it doesn't matter, because I live in a place that, I mean, in my backyard right now, so there's still snow on the ground. If I flash the camera around, there's still snow on the ground, but it's starting to go away. And I was sitting on my deck yesterday, and you know what I heard? Frogs. And it's like, yeah, it's a remarkable thing, because a month ago, the ponds in the backyard were frozen solid. And now it's thawing, and those eggs that were laid there a year ago that were buried in the mud, frozen, are thawing, and the frogs are coming out. Frogs that survived minus 40. And then the plants are going to grow, and the porcupines come out, and the deer are doing fine, and we go through a cycle. And we live here through an 80-degree cycle. So this whole idea that we have to limit carbon dioxide because it might make 1.5 degrees change in the average temperature of the planet, that's complete nonsense. We've been bamboozled by it, you know, and here in this country, we're especially naive. Well, not naive. Yeah, we are naive. We're naive, but and right now we're led by idiots who are using this to their own advantage. I mean, you know, I live in Canada right now. We have a carbon tax. Yeah, we have a carbon tax. The carbon tax went up. Actually, let me show you something. This is a Government of Canada check. Okay, so I got a Government of Canada check for the carbon tax, and the Government of Canada is desperately trying to remind us that we're getting money back from the carbon tax. I'm like, money back? You're giving me, like, how are you going to solve the climate change problem, supposedly, by collecting money from me on gasoline and then giving it back to me? And then people aren't even aware that they're getting back. So they're doing this campaign to try and raise awareness, which is hilarious, because while they're doing this campaign, their language, all they keep saying is, we're giving you money back. We're giving you money back. We're giving you money back. It's like, well, I thought you were collecting a carbon tax to control the climate. So they don't even talk about, climate. It gets lost in the narrative. Anyways, it's a topic I hate talking about, because the climate, being taxed to death for, we're what's the other thing I always say to people? I think you were leading into it. We're 30 million, we're 40 million Canadians on a planet of, what are we these days? 8 billion people. I mean, what is that? I'm doing the math in my head. That's less than 1%. And we could all die tomorrow. All 40 million Canadians could die tomorrow. Our bodies would barely start rotting. And I guarantee you the Chinese would be flooding over the border, and the Americans, and they'd be racing to Fort McMurray and places like that and start building pipelines to extract the oil, the coal, the natural gas, and all the resources that we are currently holding back on behalf of the planet. Like, we're leading by example. We're going to save the planet, us 0.5% of the population. It's complete lunacy. Yeah,
somebody way back in my conversion days, I started out as a Green Party candidate, and that's why I was actually in Calgary in 2006. I was running for the leadership of the Green Party of Canada with Elizabeth May and David Chernachenko. And, I remember somebody saying to me, if we stop burning fossil fuels today, 100%, the world's still going to go through a 400-year cycle that we will not be able to adjust. So you either learn how to adapt or you die. So, yep. We're obviously having an impact on the health of the planet. Do I think that we're running, population danger of extinction because there are too many of us? No, I think there's lots of oil in the ground. That whole peak oil argument died a long time ago with long before the $7,600 with the women. We don't get paid. Well, come on, that was Obama thing. It was such crap, you know what I mean? But, this idea that we can change the climate with taxes. And I'm all for, if you make a dirty product and it damages the environment and more so people's health, then put a tax on it. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, you and I are on the same page there. I mean, if reducing pollution, I'm all for reducing pollution, right? Actually, so for the viewers, I'm an engineer. So Marty's an engineer, right? I trained as an engineer, which makes me fairly analytical. And then I have 30 years of solving problems. And yes, I worked in an industry that is perceived as bad, because we extract resources. But trust me, I did not wake up every morning of my life thinking, hey, how the hell do I screw over this planet? Because as you pointed out early on, I have 4 adult children. So what motivated me for most of my life? My 4 adult children and making sure they had a nice future. But I'm also called Marty up north, and I have a YouTube channel. And what I'm known for is the fact that I hunt and I hike. I live on the footsteps of the Canadian Rockies, which is gorgeous. And I spend my days hiking there. And so, yes, I recognize that humans have an impact on the environment. All our activities, whether it's oil and gas, building a bridge, sailing, whatever we do, we have an impact on the environment. So I've worked my entire life to reconcile that and to minimize, to design things, to extract resources. I mean, I extract oil and gas, and people say you're killing people. It's like, I like to think that the oil and gas that I produce is running a diesel generator that's powering a hospital and is helping save lives. You see the oil and gas as, some people see the oil and gas as polluting, but let's be honest, right? There's a pretty solid benefit to oil and gas. So yeah, I worked my whole life at trying to solve problems with minimal impact. But in the last decade, what's become frustrating for me is that, we are solving the wrong problems. As you said, do I want to solve pollution? Absolutely. But is banning plastic straws in Canada the way to solve the pollution problem, or should we ban plastic straws in Thailand? I mean, so it's all about having limited time and limited resources to solve problems, so let's solve the right problems. And lately, and for me in the last decade, it's been I got out. I got frustrated. I mean, when I say the last decade, I stopped working for myself 4 years ago. But from 2000, and let me try and get the math right, from about 2015, basically when Trudeau got elected, until about 2019 when I gave up. I had 4 years. The first 4 years of Trudeau, I was still trying to get projects done and solve problems, and I was still using a common sense approach, and I was being defeated at every corner, at every turn, because we have insane people in positions of power trying to do impractical, insane things.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. I told you there was no script. I don't have a list of questions to talk to you about. I know you're pretty opinionated. I mean, you've got a good Twitter reach. Your Twitter account's less than 3 years old, and I have 80,000 followers. That's some pretty good action. So I know you're satisfied with that. You've built other platforms before, but go back to the beginning. Tell us about where you come from, what your upbringing was, and what made you the man that you are today, and give you the the morals and principles and whatever that led you into this.
Constant beatings from my dad and my mom. No, yes, I hate to admit it, but I am from Ontario as well. I'm a Northern Ontario boy.
Okay.
I'm from Timmins.
Oh, wow.
Families from Kapuskasing, Hearst, Long Lac, that part of it.
Okay.
So I'm Franco-Ontarian is what I am. And, just grew up as a normal teenager to a father who was just a laborer. Dad had no schooling. Dad installed telephones in the 1960s when people didn't have phones in their homes. And my mom, God bless her, my mom was from Quebec City. My mom came from a sophisticated background. I would say that. My mom was a sophisticated young lady who had a career as an airline stewardess working for TransCanada Airlines. I have amazing pictures of my mom doing that. But she was stuck doing sort of Montreal, Quebec flights because she only spoke French. So she wanted to learn English. And so TransCanada Airlines told her, go to Ontario and learn English. So my mom moved to Ontario, and that's where she met my dad. Dirt poor farmer, basically. And they got married. And, and I look at the date, they got married in September. They started dating, I don't know, in August, and I was born in July. So it's like, whoa, okay. There's some pretty tight timelines in there. And poor mom never went back to work. Mom stayed home and raised, a couple of kids, and dad did his best. Just, and I'm glad my dad did what he did, and he pushed me in particular pretty hard. I went to school in Ottawa at the University of Ottawa because it was a bilingual school. Played some games, went to school in Ottawa, and studied in French, but pretending to be an Anglophone, so got some scholarships, and then a year later switched to the English program, pretending to be a Francophone. But you got to do what you got to do, right? It's 1990, and I'm not that, I come from a poor family, so I made it through school. The engineering program, and the University of Ottawa had a wonderful program called Co-op, right, where you work 4 months, study 4 months, work 4 months. So classic Ontario kid, I'm thinking I'm going to go in pulp and paper, maybe the auto industry. So I do 2 work terms in that industry. And then for my third work term, somebody says, broaden yourself out and go check out, do a different job. So I'm looking at the job board, and there's these jobs in the oil patch in Alberta, but they're in middle of nowhere, Alberta kind of thing. And I'm looking around, it's like, what, nobody wants to go to Alberta? So anyways, I sit through like a television or a radio, not a radio, phone interview kind of thing. And then they're like, yeah, we're going to fly you to Alberta and we'll give you a job. So I did 2 work terms in Alberta. And when I graduated, I'll tell you this, my dad had come to Alberta. My dad somehow or other had come to Alberta in his travels. And when I graduated university and I was contemplating moving here full time to Alberta, because I graduated in '89, so we're in a downturn in the economy in Ontario. So I moved to Alberta. But Dad told me, he took me aside and he's like, "We're never going to see you again." and because he understood kind of my early rebellious side and my passion and for the outdoors and things like that. And so I came to Alberta, ended up in northern Alberta as I graduated, a little town called Fox Creek with about 2,000 people. And when I landed in Fox Creek, Dad was right. It's like that whole epiphany. I found my people. I mean, within days, I was doing work already, and I was hanging out with people. I mean, I remember that first month of my work in 1989, like it was yesterday, because it was so. Because I so found my home. It was crazy how I found my home. So then I landed with a company, an American company called Amoco. That's who hired me in northern Alberta. And Amoco had a philosophy of you graduated engineering, but it doesn't mean shit, right? You learned how to learn, but you still don't know shit. So Amoco made me what we call operate. They made me all the equipment that I was going to design in the future. I had to learn how to operate. You had to learn to drill. You had to learn all the nitty gritty, dirty aspects of oil and gas. So Amoco did that. And I credit my time up north for who I am. I mean, it's foundational to work with laborers and mechanics and electricians and drillers and stuff like that. Like, it's humbling in a sense, because you come from school, but then you meet these guys that are working on equipment, and you go, man, I absolutely know nothing. And to this day, I hang out with a few engineers, but I still go up north regularly every year, more often than every year, like several times a year. I do an annual hunting trip up north, been doing it for 25 years with the same group of 6 guys, and none of them are engineers. They're all mechanics, millwrights, and guys that I met 25 years ago. And so, yeah, it's been quite the journey. I mean, let me tell you a quick story. We're talking stories. Let's do stories, right? And can I swear a little bit?
Please do. Just don't say ivermectin.
Yeah.
Geez,
no. So
there goes my YouTube channel.
So one of those first guys that I just that became one of my mentors passed away last year. A guy named Herman, old Dutchman, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it. So I made a trip. I went to Fox Creek last year. I had to go to Herman's funeral, and then they were asking, if anybody wanted to come up to the mic and say a few words about Herman. And yeah, of course I stepped up, and I told, like I just told you, I was able to recount some of the stories of that first week. So I'll tell you a funny story. So Herman, I'm sitting in this meeting in the morning. I'm this rookie kid. I'm just starting day one. And the foreman at the front of the room is like, all right, we got a new kid named Marty over there. Who the hell is going to ride? Who's Marty going to ride with? And he's looking around, and they're like, you can ride with Herman. And everybody's like, oh, fuck, that'll be the end of Marty, because Herman's just going to chew him a new asshole, right? And but I went there, and I was just so in awe and asking Herman just the right kinds of questions. And then we stumbled on a weird fact. Herman had been in the Navy, and my father had been in the Navy, and I sail. So we talked about both. Anyways, at the end of the day, we show back up at the field shop for the end of the day meeting, and everybody's looking around and wondering. And then me and Herman walk in like we're buddies, and everybody's like, what the frick just happened? Like, why are they buddies, right? Anyways, I told that story when I went to Herman's funeral, but I also told the other story. For an entire year of my life, Herman called me a stupid cunt. So and you can't do that today, right? But he taught me. I mean, we hit it off on day one, and we had this kind of weird agreement. And then for the next year, he took me under his wing, and he taught me properly. And he didn't give a shit about my feelings, but he taught me. In fact, I'm sad that he's dead, because I almost wanted my sons, who now followed in my footsteps and became engineers, I wanted them to work for Herman. I wanted them to work for Adam and for Bob and some of the guys that I worked up north who gave me my work culture. I don't, it's a tribute to Herman. If anybody knows Herman, it's like those guys are missed. And the country's in trouble because we don't have more Hermans. What's the expression? Like, weak times make for strong men, and strong men make for weak times. I mean, we need more Hermans.
Man, it sounds like you had a strong father, and then you had a strong father figure in the workforce as soon as you got to the new gig.
Yep. That's exactly. And a strong mother. I mean,
Well,
parents who did their best parents who did their best. And that's another sad thing. So my dad wanted me to do better than him. And I did better than dad, right? Like, I got to admit that. But now I'm sad because I think that I don't think my sons will do as good as I did, nor my daughter. And broadly speaking, I think the generation that came after me in this country will be one of the first generations not to do as good as their parents. It's kind of sad that, living in Canada, in a country so rich as ours, but is so mismanaged that, that's the future for our kids. I feel bad for the kids today. And I say kids, I mean, I feel bad for the 30-year-olds, that are having a hard time getting a job, or that are doing the right thing and have a job but can't afford a house and are living paycheck to paycheck, and I think I know how to fix the problems, but the country doesn't seem to want to fix the problem. So, that's why I'm on Twitter. That is my purpose on Twitter. Is I'm called an unacceptable fact checker. The unacceptable just comes from being opinionated, being anti-vax, being pro-freedom. Trudeau, that's Trudeau's own words, right? Trudeau called me unacceptable. And then fact checker is just by my nature. I mean, people ask me, like, what do you tweet about? I'm like, to be honest, I get up in the morning. I get up in Alberta, so by the time I get up, there's already been 2 hours of shit happening in Ontario. And I turn on Twitter, and it takes me, it's not just, I'm not just political. I mean, I'll go read through a couple of tweets or news stories, and then immediately something will strike me as bullshit. And that's today's topic. Let's just break this down and let's talk about this. But it just so happens that in this country lately, in the last few years, it's mostly political. I mean, there isn't it doesn't matter what a politician's stripe is. There isn't a politician that I won't listen, that after listening to for about 30 seconds, I don't feel like just screaming at the screen and going like, fuck, you're full of shit,
How do you manage your mental health on Twitter? Because it's a nasty place. You only see the worst of the worst out there. And then the idiots are so profoundly in your face. I know Twitter's algorithms want me angry. And, I remember the first time I hit 10K on a Twitter account, it was many years ago. And all of a sudden, I started getting a lot more traffic and a lot more engagement and a lot more hate. And I had to manage it because you can only look at people's, like, I know they don't even know you, but somehow it's like you feel it, you know what I mean? So how do you balance your mental health and, your commitment to your family and your life, and then making sure that you're active, doing what you, like, when you're chirping, to the choir here, as far as, I always say you've been duped. And if there's one thing I saw a passion for myself in my broadcasting is busting myths, busting narratives that were preached for decades, like the $76 cents on the dollar. Give me a break. Women do way better in the workforce before they get pregnant and go into the world and be mothers. It's really important to most women, and I say most because most women want to be mothers. And so today's. You're
bringing
time.
up two topics.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to
definitely
talk about that one, but I'll answer your first question.
I
mean, I definitely stay sane. First of all, I exercise. I have a nice gym. I go exercise every day. I love running. I'm in the outdoors, so that's a fact. So gardening. I live out in the country. Thank God I live out in the country, because I couldn't live in a city. But Twitter, Twitter, I've learned a couple of tricks. I mean, I'm known for, people accuse me of blocking frequently. And I'm like, that's a self-preservation. That is a self-preservation mechanism. I mean, you got to block the idiots. But it also accomplishes another goal. I've argued this one, I think blocking the idiots and it does sort of, I call it curating, my following and making sure it stays real. I try hard to make sure that I stay with real humans. So there's that. but otherwise it's purely you just develop, the thick skin, and they can get under your nerves. I mean, they are relentless. But it's funny because the relentless can come from different groups. I mean, here in Alberta, one of the groups that annoys me the most is the right wingers. Like I'm a conservative. I'm a very right leaning conservative, but I'm not right enough for a lot of people on Twitter in Alberta, and they come after me all the time. So you deal with it with thick skin and humor. I mean, some guys will make comments. I use lists. People hate lists. I have lists. I have a list called a village idiot. So if I put you on the list called a village idiot, that's just my way of making fun of you and saying I know what you're doing, and I'm not going to bite. So, and if I put you on the list and you continue insisting, I'll just block you because but at the end of the day, I look at my Twitter account and I get a solid engagement, but I'm not on there all day. Some people go, man, you tweet a lot. I'm like, actually, if I look at my stats, I tweet about 15 times a day. So you just got to tweet and make sure they're pretty good tweets, and then go from there. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I am very entertained by your feed. You're on my notifications. I can't imagine that and I'm back to 10K too. I got canceled for 3 years on this account. And then when I got it back, I was over 11,000. And it was a cool account because I don't know, my following became MAGA. It was just, for whatever reason, you start following back and stuff like that. You work the algorithms. It's a game, social media. It's how can I grow this thing into something, right? And now the guys that grew their Twitter accounts are getting paid large, like now that Elon's come in and monetized it, these guys, they're not laughing about the money that they're making if they've got 1 million followers or more. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I asked this question. I think it's fair to say that my account in the US would have about 800,000 followers, like 10 times more. I mean, I am tweeting in a Canadian context on Canadian content. So that limits my growth. And I do compare I wish I had 800,000 followers. I mean, it's starting to reach out there. I mean, I'm making a few bucks. Like I get about a $500, $600 check every 2 weeks, or not check, but deposit. So, I mean, $1,200 a month for sitting in,
for 80,000 followers.
Yeah.
No shit. Good for you, man.
So if I had 10 times that's theoretically, $5,000-$10,000 a month.
Damn.
I mean, if 20 tweets got me $5,000 a month, trust me, I'd be pumped.
Holy shit! Breaking
and it's
news.
Still a tax-free source, right? Because I used to. I mean, I dropped my YouTube platform. Basically, I don't do anything on YouTube. But YouTube went through a cycle, and I think Twitter will go through the same cycle. Like YouTube, I used to make $500 a month. Then it just dwindled to nothing because the platform got saturated, and then there's limited advertising dollars. So it's then we'll have to shift to another platform.
I had a good little YouTube channel going, and they gave it to me back. They give it back to me on my 15th some appeal 3 years later. I think I got taken down for a Don Cherry podcast that I put up that had coronavirus in the title, and I think a bot took the whole. It didn't, no warnings, no 3 strikes. I had a couple copyright things I was working through, but, they were in transition. I didn't have 3 strikes, and they took the whole channel. And I was making, from November, it was a 10-year-old channel, from November to, I got monetized in November or something. No, I started building it in November. But January I was monetized, 5,000 subs, 1.5 million views a month, making $1,500 a month for 3 months, and then disappeared.
That'd be decent. Yeah. You were well on your way, but you got
only with 5,000 subs, and then it was heartbreaking. Not only because it was during COVID, and it was my sole income because I wasn't really selling real estate. I was just broadcasting. It was a weird time in Canada then. It was just before they closed the border to the unvaccinated, and that's I just. Finally, the other day, I'm like, thank God for COVID. As much as I hate the way people got duped and lied to and fell for it, and the heartbreaking part was, I don't care. They call me, somebody says, are you one of those anti-vax guys? I'm like, nope. There, baby, I got vaccinated, and I just never took a flu shot. I don't remember taking one my whole life. I never get sick. I've never had the flu. I had the flu virus, I had the stomach virus as a kid, all that shit when I was growing up, chicken pox and stuff. But I just don't get sick, so I never took the flu shot, and I never get the idea. I know how it's like Russian roulette. Like there's 1,500 strains of the flu, and we're going to pick 2 or 1, and we're going to put it in this shot, and hopefully we pick the one that's popular that year. And then you always heard the story is like, oh, I got the flu shot. I've been shit, been feeling like shit for a whole week. And then to the rare occasion, people were really, really sick from the flu shot. And I just didn't. I saw it coming, just like COVID. I saw it coming, and I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble. And I'm like, no, it's killing fat and old people, and the kids are safe. You know what I mean? Like I saw it coming, but so many people, and that's what broke my heart, as I'm taking a long way to say that it wasn't the scam that was COVID and what the governments did to us and the way the media milked it. It was that everyone just got in line and said, okay, I'll wear a mask. You're what? You're going to put what? And
we lost our minds, man. We completely lost our minds. I mean, the people who call it a mass psychosis, those academics, they're right. They're onto something. We lost our minds. I mean, I still love to remind people of some of the insanity we did. Like here in Alberta, we love watching hockey, and I couldn't go watch hockey live, so you got to watch it on television. They finally, put the players in a bubble, and the players were playing in the arena. And then I remind people, it's like we watch professional grown men play hockey on the ice in an empty arena, but we put cardboard cutouts of people in the stands. Mm-hmm. Like, how insane is that, right? I mean, God, I live in Alberta. I mean, we flipped our, and apparently people say we were mild compared to other jurisdictions. And I'm like, wow, we flipped our minds. So if we flipped our minds, I can only imagine what happened in other places, Mm-hmm. And again, it's an example of if you could convince me and show me the science, then I could go along with it. But they weren't even showing us that. They would just say, trust us. And that doesn't fly with me. I mean, and I was like you. I mean, I could have shown, I traveled. I spent a lifetime traveling as an engineer, and I traveled into some shithole countries, and I had to get the vaccines. I have vaccines that most people have never had, right? I mean, how many people went to places where you were worried about dengue fever or God knows what? So I have those vaccines. Ooh. And COVID is literally the first vaccine in my lifetime that I refused. And since refusing it, I've also refused every subsequent one. Now I'm done. I'm done with vaccines. I won't do the flu. I won't do any of them because,
it's funny, funny you mentioned dengue fever because I got it. It's pretty common down here in the Dominican, right? And I got it. Yeah. At Christmas, I thought I got the flu, and I was bummed out because I just finally got on hemp oil. I've got a gallon of it in the fridge. I take 3 tablespoons every day. Dude, it completely cured my sciatic pain, and I was crippled. I've been crippled for 4 years by it.
What did the cure or the disease?
Hemp oil. It took it away. I guess I reduced the inflammation just enough in that joint that's compressing the nerve or whatever the fuck's going on there. It cured. Anyways, I'm going off. What was it? Where was I going before the hemp oil?
Were you just talking about dengue fever?
Yeah. I thought I got the flu, and I was bummed because my immune system should be way better on the hemp oil because I was seeing benefits from it already. You see it in your hair, you see it in your skin, and your immune system's way better when you're on it. And I've been on it on and off for 25 years now. I started Nature's Hemp in 2001, almost 25 years. And so I was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and she says, well, you notice anything else about the hemp oil? I'm like, oh, shit. I can't remember the last time I limped. And I go, I'm really bummed about, getting the flu, though, because I can't remember ever having the flu. Dad's like, did you check for COVID? Did I test for COVID? No, it's not COVID. I can smell everything, and I'm not coughing. Like, I was in bed for 10 days, bro. 9 days, flat on my back. And I can tell you exactly the progression of it. Like the headache was there in the beginning. I had 4 nights of bed sweats, and then the pain set in the whole body. They call it the bone crushing disease or something like that, dengue fever. And then I hear there's a vaccine for it. I'm like, you know what? I only got 2 more strains to go. There's 3 strains of dengue. And I say that it's the genetically modified Bill Gates mosquito that got me because I'm a Windows user or I'm a Mac user. It was a joke. Anyway, and then I hear, there's a vaccine for dengue. And I'm like, why? I'll just take my chances that I'm going to get it. Because why would, I don't know. I just don't see. Now, I get, what I was vaccinated for eradicated those diseases. Polio, smallpox, rubella and mumps or measles. I don't know what the fuck was in that thing. But I got the scar because it wasn't just a needle. I guess they gave you some sort of different, the delivery device must have been different because I got it was a
multi-needle.
Was it?
Yeah. I got it too. I mean, we all have that scar and some, but the one that scares me though I didn't know you guys had dengue. The one that really worries me in my hiking is fleas and ticks, getting bitten by a tick and getting Lyme's disease. Lyme scares the crap out of me. That's one of those ones where you don't mess with that one. But yeah, I got COVID. I got about a COVID. I volunteered for a group. I've been volunteering for this group for about 15 years called the Tomorrow Project. So I'm a guinea pig. What they did is they selected 50,000 Albertans 15 years ago, sorry. And they've been testing us routinely. And then the idea is that they're establishing these huge baselines. And then when I die, 80 years from now, hopefully, or 20 years from now, when I'm 80, when I die, hopefully I die of some nice natural cause. And then they're going to go through my history that they've collected for the last 30 years and see if there's any things that, markers that could have hinted to my final demise. But anyways, so because I'm part of this group, they reached out to this group and said, would some of you guys volunteer for some antibody COVID testing? And so that was another, and because I'm unvaccinated and refused to, basically they were like, are there volunteers who were willing to not take the vaccine? I'm like, fuck man, I'm not taking the vaccine. And there's 4,000 of us that gladly said, no, we're not taking the vaccine. They thought they were going to have a hard time finding people unwilling to take the vaccine and that they were going to. So anyways, I got tested 8 times and it was crazy. So, and they shared preliminary results, but I'll tell you one thing. So on the 8th time when I got tested, they finally got my results and said, yeah, you had COVID. I'm like, yeah, I know. It was back in, 3 weeks earlier when I was in hunting camp, I came with it. So the 7 tests before that, negative for antibodies, the 8th positive. I knew exactly why. My bout was innocent. They took a shit ton of blood to save for the future because they're going to keep looking into this. But then they sent us preliminary results. And one of the results that they found that was interesting is they looked at our old blood samples, and something like 6% of us who were part of that study had samples that were 10 years or older that had COVID in it. So, and they know all this. So when they said coronavirus was a novel virus, no, there's nothing novel about it. This strain might be novel, but the coronavirus is, they went through and I might be one of those guys. They didn't tell me this, but they tested some of our old blood from 10 years ago and 15 years ago. So, and that was COVID, busting down the COVID narrative was definitely one of the things I was more famous early on Twitter. For me, COVID was a fascinating one because there was so much data on it. And I had 2 accounts zapped because of getting too close to to busting the narrative. I mean, I was at the point, prior to 2022, every time I talked about COVID, I had to make sure that the data or something that I was talking about, I had a link to a government website. So I would always go to the Alberta government website, and no matter what, I would go to their COVID page and I would just take that link and paste it. Even though my topic on COVID that day might not have anything to do with that link, I would always make sure I had a government link, which always gave me the excuse if Twitter tried to cancel me, I could always say, well, no, I'm only repeating government information. The day I forgot to put a link, and I remember it clearly, I was actually responding to our transportation minister who was still refusing to reopen the border, and I made a comment about it, but I didn't put a link. I got zapped instantly, and it's demoralizing to lose, your 15,000 account. Yeah.
Did you ever get it back? Or did you
I got it back. Yeah.
This is the account that you're on now, Marty up north _2?
No, _2 is the subsequent account. So the Marty up north _ exists. That's the first account. If somebody goes to it, it'll say I don't know what it says. It says thank you, Elon, and saved as a backup account. You can go to it. I use it for ghosting people once in a while, but yeah, thanks, Elon. I mean, I think Elon, does Elon have really, really pure heart and ambition? Is he a moneymaker? For sure he is, but he did a good thing. I mean, by buying Twitter, I think he did a good thing, and I like the direction he's taken Twitter in.
Well, I think he was this point in history will be marked, and when we look back at it, the way we've advocated for mutilating children, for talking to kids about sex, like, are we? And you know what, I've gotten away from politics a lot. Thanks for joining me. You've got some clout on Twitter. I find you fascinating. I think you're well thought out and well researched. And, we speak a similar line as far as, what, I saw this coming, man. I saw it coming. And I lost all my accounts too. Elon gave me my original account back. I still can't broadcast from it, but on Twitter, it's coming out on Jim Fannin Live. And managed to get my YouTube channels back. Man, that was rough, losing that income. And all my videos, my mother's funeral slideshow was up there. And now I got it all back. So I don't care that they took my monetization away. I mean, I do care. I'd like it, but it's
want the content.
It's not doing the traffic after being shelved for 3 years. I was doing over 1 million views a month. And I lost all that momentum, and now it's nothing, but it's still got the 5,000 subs. So, yeah, it's a strange time that we live in. And I went through the world meter stats, and these positive tests are not medical cases. They're just positive tests. And no matter how long I broadcasted the graphs and, showed the deaths in the different countries and went down the list, and people were still chirping, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're killing grandma, why won't you wear a mask, you don't care about people. I'm like, dude, I don't care. And I've got clients, we're ideologically opposed. I just, I was with clients the other day that voted for for Trudeau. And she says, I don't know that I can do it this time, but they're still liberals. You know what I mean? Yeah. We don't go passionately at politics and stuff like that, but you can coexist with people that don't ideologically share your political view. But this stuff about the kids is driving me nuts. What we did to them in COVID and what we're doing to them now, we're going to look back at this mark in history. And you're talking about Elon buying Twitter. That's a major mark where it was all wrong. It was all bad. And now the left is screaming because free speech has been reborn. Like, the conservatives aren't shadow banned as much as they used to be. I know we still have the liberals at the top.
We're not shadow banned. What they're doing now is that the left is countering by really increasing their numbers and coming after us is what they're doing. But that's fine. I mean, I'd rather you come after me and we're still out there than being shadow banned. Absolutely. Just one quick thing, yeah, I'm political, but yes, I mean, I fundamentally try to stick to facts. And one of the beauties of large governments like ours and like the one in the US is that you have armies of bureaucrats that just keep crunching the numbers and filing their reports. And so the data keeps coming out. So we can look at the data. So it's coming out, right? That's the beauty. And if somebody is curious, I tweeted about this today. Canada published its budget 2 days ago. And then so Marty goes through the budget line by line. There's literally a line in the budget right there that says, they're increasing the funding by $39 million for the vaccine injury program. I'm like, oh, cool. Bingo. Right. And so I highlight that. And then I go to the vaccine injury website. And then you go, yeah, they paid out $11 million for 1,800 claims. So I'm like, if they're bumping the program by 39 million, I'm doing the math. I'm going, well, that must mean that they're anticipating another 5,000 to 7,500 claims. And then even my wife is like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, it simply means that 10,000 people got injured by the vaccines. And it's like, is that a lot? I'm like, it's not. I think it's a lot, but I simply want to make sure that people know that, yes, people got injured by the vaccine. And I couldn't say that you. I mean, we're probably threading on
probably right.
on thin ice right here. On some
On
platforms,
YouTube.
I wouldn't even talk about this, but
Right.
I'm still convinced that ultimately a lot of the truth wins. The truth always wins, right? Well, I mean, the victors write the truth, so we'll see who's victorious here. You know, if the no, we lived through crazy times, man. I mean, well, you and I lived through several crazy times. I mean, we lived through. I lived through acid rain. I lived through Y2K. I lived through COVID. I lived through several crises.
Y2K, that was such what a scam that was, man. My computer guy did well though, you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're living through the carbon scam. And there'll be another one after this. There'll be another scam.
I can't wait till history, looking back a few hundred years, if we make it that far. I don't know if you're a Christian guy, but my Christian men, there's some of them are diehards that we're in the end times right now. That Revelation is, and I have a men's group every Thursday morning at 7:30 for anyone that's listening. That you don't have to be Christian, but it is, it's a Bible study, and we talk and go to different groups and stuff like that, and it's an hour long or something. And my buddy said to me today, I got to wait to see 3.5 years of peace before I'll believe that anything else is coming. Because if you don't show me peace, world peace for 3.5 years, and I'm a failing Christian. I'm pretty strong faith, and I don't preach, I don't talk about it, but I'm not a good Christian. I grew up Catholic, so that's my excuse. But when he said that today, I'm like, oh geez, I wish I could pull scripture and wisdom from the Bible, because it's a pretty cool book. But he says, yeah, those guys that say it's here, and they might be right, but I want to see 3.5 years of peace first. I'm like, okay, so that's a thing.
So what's the reference to 3.5 years of
know.
peace?
I wish I knew. I mean,
okay.
I shouldn't even
It's in
gone
there
down
somewhere.
the road, but it's like the red calf and the temple on the hill, or the Euphrates dries up, and there's a whole bunch of them, I think.
Well, and I mean that that is actually a topic that I am not touching right now on Twitter, is the war in the Israelis against. I'm not informed on it enough, and I can see that one is extremely polarizing. So I'm staying away from that one.
Marty, who cares? Like, okay, those guys, I remember in the 80s when I was in high school, having I used to listen to Larry King all the time. And what was it, Desert Storm or whatever was going on back then or something? Was it the Iraq War? Or is that different? I don't know. I'd lay in bed and listen to the war. I'd listen to Larry King talk about the war till 5 o'clock in the morning, or whoever was broadcasting. I was just, I don't know. I was a high school kid, but I was really into it. Like, just really amazed. And anyway, I remember coming downstairs one day in a panic and telling my mother, "That's it. That's the middle. It's all going. This is it. The world's done. We're a nuclear war." And she's like, "Jimmy, listen. They've been fighting for thousands of years over there, and don't worry about it. The sun's going to come up and it's going to go down. It's going to come up and it's going to. Don't worry about it. I can't care less about what Russia's doing in Ukraine, or what what Hamas is doing to the Jews. You deal with it, and don't take my money to pay for it." Like,
I'm with you on that one, but you said something interesting, or I'll add to it. I find one thing fascinating is, yes, they've been fighting at it for so long. And then you do hear them talking about it as if the fight that occurred 400 years ago occurred last week. And I find that a little bit fascinating because, I don't remember punching a guy in the nose last week while playing hockey. If you told me you had a fight with Fred, I don't remember Fred. So, remembering a battle between my ancestors and your ancestors 400 years ago, that seems a little bit, I've noticed you're a smoker, but why do you put your hands over it? Is there wind in your house? Oh, you got that fan going over you. That's why you're doing that.
What are you talking about? I'm not a smoker. We don't talk about that on air. Nobody sees me doing that in the background. You gonna out me for using my vape too? Jeez.
I put out a picture on Twitter the other day where I had a cigarette in my hands, and like people are just screaming. It's like, oh God, leave me alone.
Dude.
And that's my motto in life, right? Just leave me the fuck alone. Like, that's all I want. And people say that, like, you're so political, Marty. I'm like, in fact, I'm not.
I don't really care about it. Just leave me alone.
Yeah, I've become political in the last little while because people won't leave me alone. My government in particular won't leave me alone. I mean, shit, 50. I did an exercise one time, and I asked people, like, can you name the not the prime ministers, but can you name the premiers of this province? And most people couldn't. I'm like, yeah, that's how we are, man. It's we're not political. We're Albertans. We just want to work. Get out of our way. Let us work.
I was a good friend of mine, Greg Vesna, and he's in the hydrofuel business, specifically ammonia. Most people don't know that you can burn ammonia. It burns pretty well with little modifications to the combustion engine, and your exhaust is water vapor. It's steam. There's no carbon in ammonia, and we get some issues with it. But anyways, he talked me into running in 1993 because Mulroney's Conservatives were going to deregister any federal party that didn't run 50 candidates nationally. It was Mulroney's way of, putting this, just before the election, he dropped this, he had a majority government, and as the Greens, we weren't big Mulroney fans. And I knew nothing about politics. And I went to Vez's place in Mississauga and boned up on electoral reform and proportional representation and cap fee and dividend and all these political issues, and listened to the tape all the way home, and I told him, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. And then for some, Pete Marina at Sea How Radio called and said, and somehow he got me to say yes. I committed to going on the radio for this debate. I lost my voice. I didn't know when you were that nervous. Only puffs of air come through your throat. I tried to cough and it went like this. It was just puffs of air coming out. I was so scared. So anyways, I got 295 votes in 1993. And
for you,
soaked the chair with sweat. And then in my Delta 88 Brougham, dual power propane and gas in 1993, I was driving down Forks Road, leaving the Sea How country radio station out in the sticks in Welland, with my knees screaming at the top of my lungs because I just conquered my greatest fear. I didn't know. I knew I was scared of speaking, but I didn't know.
You would have been young, man. 93. Holy shit. That's a long time ago.
24, yeah. I guess I was. I'm about the same age as you. I just turned 55 in September. Anyway, so I never forgot that feeling, that elation. I was higher than I've ever been, and trust me, I've been pretty high, especially in my high school days. And I went to Toastmasters and learned how to speak. Now I love it. Doesn't matter how big the crowd is. I love it. It's all the same. It's like being on the radio. I've done it. I've been there. It's amazing. And then I went away, and then I came back and I ran. I think 10 times, probably 8 times for the Greens. I ran for the None of the Above party, which is Greg Vesna's party, because he actually helped get Justin elected. He was at the leadership campaign. He's worked for every political party, but ran mostly Green. And then he started the None of the Above party. And I ran once for him. And then the last federal election, the PPC declined me as a candidate. Dude, I'm good on stage now. I'm funny. I can steelman both the liberals. I can steelman left and right of all the political issues. I can pretty much. I'm that because I got good at it right after 10 years and 8 elections, and I was. And then I've had Max on the show too. I'm like, dude, what's the problem? Am I too toxic for the PPC?
Yeah, but do you? It's kind of a silly question, but do you run with the thought that you might win? Do you just run and not thinking about winning? Because I get asked that question all the time. Like, will you run? And I'm afraid of winning, and I don't want to win, because if I got it, like I can't imagine winning and putting my family through this, and I'm an asshole, and I would attract assholes. So I don't want, that's what I get asked that all the time. Just run. I'm like, yeah, but what if I win? I don't want to win. Well, so maybe I should run for the BBC. That's a dig to poor Max. I mean, it's yeah.
No, I mean, I don't have a loyalty. I do feel a loyalty to Max because I like his principled approach. I like that he doesn't care what the polls say. I like that he's listening to a guy like me that says, dude, you're the only party that stands out on all these issues. Why not proportional representation? Why not, sell a system that if you get 6% of the vote, you get 6% of the seats? And I know we'll end up in a perpetual freaking minority government, and you could get a coalition like we've got now, and lots has happened in democratic countries with
we'll look like Italy.
governments.
I mean, we'll be like Italy or some of those
but,
countries. Yeah.
But he listens, and I get that. So, you know what? I got a lot of time for a guy like that. But in 1993, when I got 295 votes, I was an embarrassment to my family. Like literally, like they're like, you're gonna do what for the who? The Green Party, like Jimmy, like they shook their heads, and I never. But there's always not that campaign, but when I had funded campaigns and we had campaign offices and campaign managers and stuff like that, and we didn't have all that much money. And the campaign office was always a donation from one of my business real estate clients in St. Catharines or something like that. There was always part that, once we got rolling, there was always a point in the campaign where somebody said something to you, like someone would come up to me and go, you know what? You could win this thing. And you're like, for a minute, you try it on like a shirt and put it on in the mirror. You're like, but then it goes away really quickly because you got to be really well connected and run a really strong, well-funded campaign, and you got to know how to cheat at the ballot box. No, did I say that? No. I mean, you need to have China's influence if you want. These guys don't get elected by accident; they're handpicked all the way.
It doesn't look like it is anymore. You're right. I agree.
PPC,
Everybody is.
Marty,
what do they say? Not elected, selected. More people, more likely selected. Yeah. Just a quick question. I'd never heard of the none of the above party, but I've heard of. Wasn't there a guy one time who changed his name to none of the above in Canada so he could put his name on the ballot as none of the above? Is that the same party or is that just a...
That was one of Greg's candidates. And he made a little bit of news for doing that, but not near as much as he probably should have.
Interesting. Yeah, cool.
Well, this is the thing. Greg Vesna is not anything less than a genius. You know what I mean? He had an ammonia-powered car in, I don't know, 86 or some shit. He had the Minister of the Environment drive it around Ottawa. And he wanted, we should have none of the above on the ballot as an option. You should be able to say, I'm not destroying, I'm not refusing, I'm not rejecting my ballot, because that's all I would ever do. They'd hand it, I said, how do I reject my ballot? And I didn't know that they put the rejected ballots in with spoiled ballots, so it doesn't really, you're not really making a point. If they counted the rejected ballots that, like, I vote for none of these guys, I vote to not vote. If they did that, then that would be something different. But that's what I used to do, and then I voted for myself more times than anyone I know. Put yourself, for all these guys chirping on Twitter about all these political stuff, how many times do you run for anything, dummy? Like, it's easy to have an opinion when you've never put your skin in the game. But yet he wanted none of the above on the ballot, and he took them to court because they wouldn't put it on. It's undemocratic not to have it on. And then he said, I will start a party called the None of the Above Party. He says, well, we won't give you that name because it's too confusing on the ballot to have it. You'll think that it's, well, put it on the ballot then. And then just before he went into court, they gave him the name. They wouldn't cave to the, I don't know if they could unilaterally. Sure, you can change the ballot. You can put none of the above on the ballot. It's more democratic to do that. People that want to vote for nobody, because there's actually elections where none of the above wins the election. People are so pissed off. I can't remember where it happened for mayor or somebody. It was somewhere in the States. None of the above has won before. And the rules behind that are, well, it depends on your district, but in this particular case, I think it was you had to hold a new election, and none of the people that ran could run again.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
On that topic, the interesting thing here in Alberta, I don't know if you followed it, is the recall. We tried to recall the mayor of Calgary. So Alberta implemented a recall legislation about 4 years ago, and this was the first time we attempted to recall someone. And with the legislation, the way it's written, you need more signatures than there are potential voters, which is ridiculous. So I don't know how they came up with this formula, but to recall a politician in Alberta, you need 40% of the eligible population is the number. So to recall this mayor, we needed something like 300,000 signatures on a ballot. She got 170,000 votes. Our democracy can use a little bit of our rules date back to whatever 1867. We could use a tweak, a lot of tweaks.
It's a two-party system. The first past the post is definitely designed for that. And when you have two parties, somebody wins with a majority, and they get the electoral college in the States. It's not perfect, but I get what it's designed to do. And nothing's ever going to be perfect. You're not, and that's the thing. Jordan Peterson makes this point. You think you can take a system that's running at 87% efficiency and tweak it to be 93% efficient, the odds are that you're going to break it and become 40 to 50.
Now you're truly talking my language. That's what I've done my whole life as an engineer. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think you're going to tweak a system that's running at 87% and make it better, and chances are you'll break it completely, or you'll be running at 50%. And so, as humans, we have to get and I appreciate your thoughts on this, because you have that mindset. You're an engineer. I don't think like an engineer normally, I guess. But
no, that's like an example would be a car, right? If I'm driving my car and I'll pick a value. I'm at 95% efficiency. Every gallon of gas gets me, so many miles. You'll inevitably, it's an optimum there's an optimum for something. So I picked 95. 95 is for something like a car or a political process is pretty optimum. And I've had lots of bosses say, get it to 98. I'm like, first of all, it's called diminishing returns on your investment. At some point, to get that last 2-3% is so much effort. It's hardly worth it. And yes, I can blow up the engine trying to get to 98. I might run at 98 for 2 days. Then I blow up my engine. And now the car sits in the shop for the next 3 months while I rebuild it. And when I do the average at the end of the year, I go, bravo, boss. Now that car ran 60% when I do the math for the whole year. So I've heard, and as an engineer, that's the other thing. I was talking about this with, I can't help but thinking about this. I was talking to my doctor the other day about something like this. As an engineer, I will only change one thing. So when I'm trying to achieve these incrementals, I will only change one thing. And that drives my bosses nuts, right? They're like, what? What do you mean? I was like, dude, I'm changing the gasket design, nothing else. And let's see if it gets to 95.4, perfect. And if we change the gasket design and it goes down to 94.7, what am I going to do? That was a bad idea. Go back to the original gasket and try something different. And I know Peterson said that, he was asked a very honest question. Is there any advice you would like to give to Trudeau? And I thought he was going to lambaste him. And Peterson gave a very proper response, which is he'd like to ask him, have you ever thought that your policies are doing harm or have unintended consequences? You and I know that every action I do can have an unintended consequence, and I will reverse it. Trudeau keeps going ahead. But I mean, we're digressing a little bit. I agree. The United States, Canada, we are pretty sophisticated democracies. We're pretty sophisticated societies that function pretty freaking well. And for somebody to say we're just going to rip it down and start all over, before you do that, before you rip it down and start all over, show me what it's going to look like. Like what's this 98% efficient democracy or system of government that we're going towards? And nobody, I say the Americans have one of the best ones. I mean, it's brilliant in its that's all. And that's all I want in life. And that's all I want from my government. Just tweak us forward a little bit. And if you do something, here's an example. I mean, we're plunging ahead fast in Canada with MAID, right? Medically assisted aid in dying. I'm like, ooh, okay. I'm thinking there could be unintended consequences on this one. I'm not sure what, but I'm thinking, you know what? If we suddenly let everybody just magically go kill themselves, there might be some legal consequences. There might be some family trauma that occurs out of it. I don't know what it is. So can we maybe move into this one slowly? Or an alternatively, I mean, all societies are facing the same problem. So it's like, why do we have to do MAID and they do MAID and they do MAID and they do MAID? So let's watch the Dutch. The Dutch are playing with this. Let's watch what goes on in Holland with their assisted suicide, as an example. I think we're punching ahead too fast on some of these social changes without even thinking of the consequences. And when the consequences manifest themselves, we're reluctant to step backwards and reconsider. So yeah, I get nervous when somebody says during COVID, when they kept saying, build back better. I'm like, build back better. Whoa. I mean, it works pretty damn good. works pretty damn good.
And that's what the Antifa and these, they're pretend anarchists. They love the vaccine. That goes against everything that an anarchist falls in line with. That is it. Burn it all to the ground and build it back better. No, are you kidding? You take a little bit of funding from the police, and what happens? You see what happens. You start not processing. You start not arresting people for stealing things. It's just anyways. I've kept you well over an hour, and we haven't even talked about anything.
What?
He goes fast, man. So
bring me back, man. Is it an hour?
Yeah, I think
it is an hour. Holy shit!
So talk to me. Pick your favorite issues. What are the ones, like, for me, it's the kids. Like, just stop fucking with the kids. I don't care if you took the shot or what you think about COVID I don't care. I don't care about foreign wars. I don't care who you want to have sex with. It's none of my business. I don't introduce myself to people with my sexual orientation. It doesn't matter. We don't care. That's what they fail to realize, all these activists. You're trying to genocide on LGBT. No, we don't. We don't care. We just don't talk to my kids about it, and don't try and push it on us. That's all. And then you're going to get a pushback. What are your top issues that just drive you freaking crazy? What are you tweeting about these days?
Climate change drives me nuts. Climate change drives me nuts. As a very brief example, I turned on the TV briefly the other day, and there's a forecast on there, and here's a map of Alberta with and it's full of reds. Remember the good old days when red meant like you're in the middle of a heat wave, and I'm like, so next week's forecast is 10 degrees Celsius, and they have it in red. So climate change, the whole insanity here in Canada, it's we're still we got a government that's driving this climate catastrophe agenda, shoving it down our throat and making a whole bunch of bad decisions in the process. They want to force us to they want to ban gasoline engines by 2035. So for me, climate change is insanity. I'm an engineer and I'm an oil and gas guy. I love talking about energy policies and the future of the planet when it comes to energy and population growth and the third world wanting what we want. I like talking about that. I talk less and less about kids these days, just because my kids are older, right? So this leave our kids alone argument, I get. I'm 100% for it. Leave our kids alone. Like, fuck, leave our kids alone. But it's not near and dear to me right now. I don't have grandkids yet. My kids are 18, 19, 20, and they're doing okay. So, but lately, it's politics. I'm not even picking on other politicians. I'm laser focused on getting Justin Trudeau defeated, because I don't like the direction that the country's going. I think Canada is not a serious country right now. We used to be a serious country that punched above its weight class. We were respectable. We could be counted on as a decent partner in around the world in any event, in any endeavor, and we are just a joke right now. And I like Max, I like all sorts of people, but at this point I don't have a long game when it comes to Canada. I just need freaking Trudeau gone. That's all. I just need him gone. So what I'm doing is I'm focused on busting down every lie that he makes. That guy, every day when he goes on the internet, like yesterday, he gets on in post-budget release, he's on the internet still talking about like how he's fiscally responsible. I'm like, oh my God, that's like a drug addict saying he's not addicted to drugs. And, so I'm those are my topics: climate change, defeating Trudeau, and thinking about what a better Canada looks like. I like to think about that, right? So getting Trudeau's one thing, we got to get rid of him, but then people will often ask me that, like, once he's gone, what does it look like? And I like talking about that. I like talking about, what's broken, but not just bitching about what's broken. How should it be? I give an example of a topic, like Canada doesn't have a shipbuilding industry. I find that fascinating. Fascinating. We don't build ships in this country. We have the longest coastline on the planet. I have energy. I have resources. I have steel, aluminum, an intelligent population, deep harbors. We don't build ships. So, future economic growth, things like that. Yeah, I mean, are we shutting down? I'll keep talking.
No, I can't believe my backup generator has been running for 10 hours today.
Yeah.
And it hasn't clipped off, and we're gonna go dark soon because it's gonna kick back in. But we got a full hour.
I mean, let's honor the hour kind of thing. But bring me back, man. I'd like come back next time and pick a couple of specific topics, and I'll wax poetic on a topic. If you see anything I'm tweeting about that you find interesting, I'll go deep on that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I was gonna ask you on the way out. You're writing your own book. You're writing your own movie, and you want a really good finale. If you could write your story anyway, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, I know I kind of see by just talking to you, you're going to have a void in your life. You can only do so many hikes and trips, and every man needs a purpose. And I know your purpose could be cutting wood so that you could burn in the wood stove, but that gets tired pretty quickly for a retired engineer from the oil sands or the oil rigs or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what if you what's your fantasy? Like, you get picked up as I don't know, a broadcaster, a senator? Like, I mean, you say you don't want to be an elected politician. Where would you fit really nicely?
I fit nicely as an advisor to if the right senior politician said, like, that's something I love about the American system. Like, the president has senior advisors. I'd love to be a senior advisor, not necessarily a bureaucrat or a minister. I'd love to be, in fact, it's a great question. And I literally offered it to our current premier because we were friends. So Danielle and I know each other from way back. And she used to consult on me before she became a politician in preparation for becoming the premier. Now she can't. And I said, you should have hired me because I'll be that guy who sits in that back room. And when you're in a meeting and it gets tough, I'm the guy who's just going to reach for his phone and quietly text you something, or you can unleash me on anything. If you want me to research properly a policy and give you, I'll be your bullshit detector, your lie detector. When you're in a room and somebody's lying, but unfortunately, for me, she's good, actually. She's really good. So she doesn't quite need an advisor. But if I was going to be an advisor to somebody, I'd want to be an advisor to somebody that I trust, respect, and find intelligent. I couldn't be like Trudeau could call me tomorrow and say, we want to be my advisor. You could say, I'll pay you $1 million. I said, go pound sand, man. I'm not selling myself to the devil. So I like policy. I like solving problems. Yeah, I like solving problems. And I might go back to that. I mean, I say I'm retired. I'm looking at in Alberta, I'm a professional engineer. So it's kind of like being a lawyer or a doctor. You have to stay accredited. And it became hard to stay accredited lately because I'm not going on courses and staying, abroad of the technology. So I delisted myself. I declared myself a non-practicing engineer, but I can easily re-register. If things were to change in the next 2-3 years and the climate got smarter again, Marty might go back to. You're not the first guy to say that. Lots of people said, Marty, you're not going to last retired. You're not going to last. So far so good though. So far so good.
All right, brother.
Yeah.
I appreciate your passion, and I appreciate you standing up and being a man, and give my best to your wife. And I know that behind every great man is a great woman.
I got a great one for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So
she makes me better. I've said this online a million
lucky
times.
Man.
Like I am more successful in life because I'm
we're
married.
lucky that you have her, because that makes you a more effective communicator and bulldog or whatever you want, a war room dog. And you'd be great in the war room. And you know what? Justin Trudeau's got some great people around him, man. Like I know a personal friend of mine that sat at a bar in Montreal with Justin, and he said, Jimmy, he can't hold together small talk. He is so stupid. You have no idea. And this is way before, you know?
I don't doubt it.
He has brilliant, genius people around him, just like Joe Biden does. You know, how did they pull that off? Like, you know, that doesn't come from being a neophyte and not knowing your way around the political system. These guys are bright.
Yeah.
And there's guys like Max Bernier, who I love, who I think could use a Warren Kinsella here and there. You know what I mean? To be the dirty dog in the war room and do the shitty work. And I know Max wants to stay above the shitty work, and I get that. But there is room for guys like you, and I'm excited. And here's another thing. I catch people on their way up. You know what I mean? Like, I had Ashley St. Clair on my show 5 years ago before she was, like, she's got 1 million followers now. She's a big deal. You know, but she had a kid and she took some time off and everything. But I caught her on the way up. She talked to me for an hour. And now Ashley St. Clair, you know, I had Savannah Hernandez on. You know, she was, you know, Elijah Schaefer's producer on his show. And she's just like... Savannah Hernandez is just one of my favorite women on the planet and a really tough chick and bright. And so maybe you're going to get the call soon, bro. And I can say, I
make some
remember
introductions
Marty from up north when he was a retired engineer playing around with Twitter with 80,000 followers. Look who he is now. You know, remember Jimmy Finn and having him on the show in the early days.
I mean, I'll close with this. I mean, that's why I engage with you. It's never for an ulterior motive. I like engaging with people and having discussions. And sometimes in my life, some of these discussions I've had with people lead to great things, like really great things, you know?
I'm glad you said that, Marty, because I was talking to another one of my, well, I was still on, after my Christian group done, we stay on Zoom and whoever stays on, we just, sometimes we stay for an hour. But George, there's just the two of us, and today we're batting this around, and I told him, George, I've kind of booked 3 interviews for the Jim Fannin show. I have not been doing the Jim Fannin show down here because I can't really afford to. I need to concentrate on real estate. Nobody cares what I think about Trump or Trudeau or the vaccine or abortion or religion or nothing like that. These shows this is how I get to know guys like you. I find it fascinating. And once in a while, you get the acknowledgement and somebody says, Jimmy, you remember he had Marty from up north? He said this one thing, and I didn't see the whole interview, but I heard him say this, and it changed everything for me. And I know that's ego feeding, but that's, and I said to George, I got Marty, and you saw the list, I tweeted it out. I got Marty today.
You got Rob, showing on, Big Rob Primo, and who else you got?
Coming on in 2 weeks, and Josh Biggers next week.
Yes.
So Thursday night at 7:00 is the Jim Fannin show again, and I really don't know why, because I'm not monetized anywhere. Nobody's sending me cash apps or making a donation to my PayPal. No, I don't ask for it. I'm trying to sell some real estate. I'm trying to keep my head healthy because I'm alone. I don't have, I'm never married, no kids. You know what I mean? Yet, I keep saying, I'm 55. Oh, Andrew Tate. Did you see Andrew Tate's latest thing he sent out? An email to everyone. He goes, you white men, you're doing it to yourself. You should have 30 kids. Plant your seed all over the place. I'm like, 55. I could probably squeeze in 10 kids.
How old's Robert De Niro? And he just squeezed one right now. It's possible.
Well, I figure even if I just had one, if I had 20 years with a little Jimmy, male or female, that's all I need. 20 years with a human mind to make sure that we're good to go. That I think it'd be all right.
Awesome.
Anyway, I appreciate your time, man. I love you. Thank you for your commitment. And I mean, do you do many of these interviews?
I do one regularly with a guy named Clyde Do Something. I do one once a week with Clyde where we focus purely on Canadian politics, the humorous side of Canadian politics. Otherwise, no, lately I do about one every 2 weeks. I like to lend my voice to people. People call me and it's similar to what we did. There's seldom a topic. It's but if there was, I mean, I think I'm pretty well spoken. I can hold my own on a lot of different topics for sure. I can.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time. Let's do it again and get that retweet out. We didn't get much Twitter traffic today, but to everyone that's pure bloods on YouTube commenting. I'm not seeing any comments from the Facebook crowd, but I'm so shadow banned on Facebook, it's not even funny anymore. And my Twitter account's kind of small, the one I'm coming from. But 8:30. Well, there goes 90 minutes, brother. I really appreciate it. We don't need any acknowledgement for what we're doing here. Down the road, somebody will say, hey, you remember that show you did with Jim Fannin? Way to go. You helped me out. You helped me realize something I didn't know.
Go put some diesel in that generator so you don't go dark, buddy.
Well, it's been running all day. It's powering 121 units in this fine little former resort called Caribe Campo. Dude, I got you. Come down here. And the wife, I got a tiny little studio. You don't need a place. You don't need anything big. It's got a nice big 80-foot pool. It's nice and safe. And
I might take you up on that one.
cheapy.
I'm looking.
$500 American, put you up for the month.
Awesome. All right, man.
All right. Peace out.
Cheers, everyone.
Ciao. All right. That's how you do that. Marty from up north. Marty Belanger. I'm going to show you his links here. Oh, no. I did it. Oh, here we go. We're on the YouTube channel here. Here is his, I'm going to put it in the comments right now. Doesn't usually work for Twitter, but it'll be on the other platforms. So this is his Instagram, and this is his Twitter. Man, you know what? Again, I don't know why I do this, why I care half the time. But I like talking to interesting people, especially if they give me the time of day, then why not? Marty up north is the YouTube. He's not real active here. Why not talk to a guy like that? He's going somewhere. He's no Mr. Dummy. I am, and I'm a little burned out. And I don't usually, don't take me. No, don't shoot me. I don't do the close-ups of my fotch normally. There we go. You see the back end of my YouTube? Where am I? Why am I so lost? Okay, I got nothing more for you. Thank you to Marty Belanger. I say Belanger. I don't know. He doesn't say, he dropped it. He's French, dude. He's Franco. 56-year-old outdoorsman from Alberta, Canada. Where does it say Franco? Yeah, 1634, 12th generation Franco Albertan. And then he confessed he's really a Franco Ontarian. What a fraud. All right, that's it. Peace, love, hug your neighbor, and I am out.